This week on the Music Biz Weekly podcast, this is going to be a thinking episode, and that's probably scaring people away right now. But we asked the question, what's your vibe? Who are you? What's your story? What's your brand? If you're a brand new artist and you're like, how do I get started finding my fans? You got to answer those questions first. And we get into it deep.
Welcome to the Music Biz Weekly podcast, founded in 2011 and with over 500 weekly episodes, where Michael Brandvols discuss the very latest trends, tools, and tactics that you need to succeed in this new music business.
The Music Biz Weekly podcast has moved to a brand new YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss future episodes. Visit www.musicbizweeklypodcast.com, subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate us on Spotify, subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. We appreciate your support.
Hey, Music Biz Weekly podcast. We're back. You got Mike, you got Blasko. And I'm just going to come right out. Welcome, Blasko, as the new co-host.
Hey. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Last week, I felt good. It felt really good. I mean, first of all, we come from the same music space, meaning rock, metal, hard rock. I mean, we both live in that world. You're deeper because you're also a musician in that world, but we live in that same world and we understand that world and the fan bases and everything else. And I think it felt good gelling last week. So
yeah, man, I had fun. Look, I want to spread the good vibes of music and heavy metal and hard rock and the business side of it and whatever. So it's fun. It's fun, man. It's fun.
It is. Yeah. So before we get into what we're going to have as our main topic this week, I want to just do a quick shout out once again to Bruce and Jeremy and everybody at Hypebot and Bands in Town for your continued support. It is so important to us. And I do want to remind everybody watching, listening, whatever platform you're on, hit whatever follow, subscribe, whatever button that player is that you're listening to, hit that button because that will always help in the algorithm games. God, I hate the algorithm games, but we got to play it. We live in that world. So hit the follow, subscribe buttons on whatever platform you're on. So real quick, Blasko, speaking of Bands in Town, a little news bit hit earlier this week, and not a lot to say about it, but I think it's worth mentioning. Apple Music, with the new update that you got this week to your iOS devices, rolled out a new feature in Apple Music where now artist tour dates are all listed on the artist profiles. And they've never had this before. And listen, I mean, I'll just come right out and say, it's basically the same thing that's happening at Spotify. You know, you go onto a Spotify profile, there's events, there's all the dates, you click the date, you can buy the ticket. Well, guess what? It's Bands in Town providing the data to Spotify, and Bands in Town is now providing that data to Apple Music. So again, if you're not using Bands in Town, get your butt over there, get it set up, make sure all your tour dates are always updated and active. And the only thing you have to do to make sure it shows up on your Apple Music profile or Spotify profile is on the settings tab in Bands in Town, where it lists all of the links that you have. Put in the URL to your Apple Music profile, put in the URL to your Spotify profile. That's it. Once you've done that, every tour date populates both platforms. So now when fans are listening to you, they can see tour dates, they can click a link to buy a ticket. That's it. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
We actively use Bands in Town. It's a good platform. Obviously, anyone listening, encourage you to use it as well. And if you don't, I'm not sure what the holdup is, but you should definitely be using it because to me, it's industry standard.
It is industry standard. It's free unless you want to actually pay for promotions. And listen, I think their promotional offering is actually really good. I've used that many times. I'm sure you have as well. I mean, what a great way to target similar artist fans to you. I think I've used it in Wasp a couple times where I'm like, okay, I want to send a message to Motley Crue fans
Mm-hmm.
within 200 miles of this venue that Wasp is playing. I don't want to send it to Wasp fans. The Wasp fans already know. I want to expand our reach. And you can do that. And I think, what do they charge? 6 cents an email, 5 cents an email, something like that. But that's pretty damn targeted. I don't know any other services out there that can get you targeting that specific.
Correct. Yeah. It's for the right event and the right time to put a little boost money behind a promotion. It's a relatively frictionless
It is.
a process in Bands in Town compared to, say, using Ads Manager on Facebook or something.
Please, yes. Let's not even get into using Facebook Ads Manager.
It's
just,
right.
Yeah. No. Bands in Town is a must-have if you're serious about your career in the music business, and don't fool yourself to think it's just a place to list tour dates. Yes, that its core business is tour dates, but there's a lot more you can do within Bands in Town. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. I'm happy to see Apple Music has added Bands in Town tour dates to all artist profiles. It's not a beta. You don't have to turn it on. You don't have to sign an agreement. It just is there now. So, I mean, if you've been using Bands in Town, you got to update your iOS to make this work in Apple Music. But head over to your Apple Music profile and you'll see your tour dates listed there. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, agreed.
So Blasko, I wanted to kind of throw out a question to you to kick this discussion off. You're a musician, as we said, you're a musician. You've been in bands, you're in the industry, but put on a hat and imagine your slightly different situation here. You're starting a new band. You don't have a record deal. You don't have a big manager. You don't have boatloads of money before you. It's how most bands start. It's 4 guys living off of whatever you're making on your day jobs to make this band happen. Every band starts at that level.
Yep.
If you are in a situation like that, how would you, with what you know about the business now, how would you approach building, finding, growing that band's fan base without spending thousands of dollars in ads and using expensive services? Do you have tactics or things you've done in the past that every new band, young band, indie band, any band that just isn't financially set, let's put it that way, because I think that's the key to this. Anybody can do this if you've got thousands upon thousands of dollars to do it. You hire somebody and you say, go off and do it and tell me what the results were. No, you got to do it yourself. You got little to no money. How would you do that?
Well, I have a hypothesis that I came up with the other day. And not to sound like the old guy, but just for context, whenever I was growing up, and let's just say this is like early 80s, the 2 biggest faces and voices in pop music were Michael Jackson and Madonna. Now, I never owned a Michael Jackson or Madonna record, but at the time, I could sing you any of their songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that the point of entry was 2 places, primarily. It was terrestrial radio and MTV. And those were your choices of where you heard and saw music. So nowadays, music is ubiquitous. It is everywhere, right? You can't escape a place for music to be. So artists to stand out becomes a little bit more difficult. But here's a similarity that I noticed from the Grammys recently. I also do not own a Chappell Roan record. and I do not know any of her songs. I do not own a Billie Eilish record, and I cannot sing you any of her songs, right? Just as an example. But so my hypothesis comes down to, what's your vibe? Because pop stars of today, artists of today, have a vibe that enters the room before their music does, right? So I can rattle off a number of high level artists in the pop culture, right? Something that I kind of know nothing about because it's not my thing or whatever. But I know of these artists and I know of their vibe, and I do not know of their music. I mean, I'm sure there's a Weekend song. They'd be like, oh, that's the Weekend. But right now, I cannot sing you a Weekend song. But I know the vibe of the Weekend. So circling back to my long-winded point is, if you're starting from scratch, the first question you got to ask yourself is, what's our vibe? Right. And so,
and just real quick, by vibe, could we also say, what's your brand?
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. And this happened recently. The management company was on a call with a potential client, and someone asked her if she could describe her brand in a couple of words or a sentence, and she couldn't do it. And that, to me, kind of was a bit of a red flag, or just like a warning sign, and a bit of a cautionary tale, if you will, of like, if you're a brand new artist and you're starting out and if you can't identify who you are as an artist and what your brand is, then it then becomes difficult to identify who your audience is. And then how do you connect the dots between who you are as an artist versus who your fans are? If you don't understand who you are as an artist, then how do you understand who your audience is? And then how are you going to connect the dots there, right?
Yep.
So, I think of a couple of working models that are a little bit more relevant. When I started working with, say, In This Moment, back before they had a record deal or anything, they were a female-fronted metalcore band, which at the time was extremely rare. And they were like a kill switch engage with a female singer. And you could play it for someone without seeing a picture of the band, and they'd be like, oh, the band's cool. But then you show them a picture and you're like, oh, which one's the girl? And you're like, that's the singer. They're like, wow, she sounds kind of like a guy. But now that I'm playing it, I'm picturing it, right? And it changes the dynamic. It changes the vibe, right? And then like Black Veil Brides, whenever I first found them, their music was a message of anti-bullying. So their music video that they scraped together a few bucks to make this video, but it had a very specific message, something that people weren't talking about 15 years ago. And it was kids being bullied in school. And that was the message that was being conveyed through their music and through this music video. And it really resonated with the young fan base of people. And, that video today has like 100 million views just because of that resonance quality of it. And so that's the vibe, right? Like these are two kind of different vibes, but the point of it is that there's a message, or there's something unique. There's something about it that makes a band, that differentiates what a band is. And, like I often think too, that if you're a group of guys, maybe I find that what maybe works best is getting a group of guys together that aren't all on the same page. Sometimes what makes sense is a confrontational environment,
a little bit of friction,
right? And I use kind of Rage Against the Machine as an example, because before Rage Against the Machine, there was a band called I think it was the Majority of the Guys, but it wasn't Zach. And they had a different name, and they were kind of more like a Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of thing. But even though it was his guitar playing style was very in there, it was still funky, and it was very much of the time of like this kind of funky Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of thing, right? Because that was hot in LA
Sure,
at the time. But so take that music, but then then plug in a frontman that's coming from a completely different place. And then what do you have? You have this unique mashup of these two different things that seemingly don't make sense on paper, but make perfect sense whenever you put it together. And it's a unique thing, because think about if you Rage Against the Machine just had like a regular type of singer about it that didn't have a specific kind of voice, that didn't have a specific kind of style, it might be forgettable, even though his guitar playing is super unique. So look, I mean, I think it starts off at what makes us unique. How can we differentiate ourselves and not just be kind of part of the system, right? Not just be kind of more of a crowded environment. Like
more of the same.
Do we need another one of those things? How can you bring some unique flavor to the recipe that's going to make you a little bit different? Something like that starts the process, because look, starting from scratch is hard no matter what. But if you're trying to compete in a crowded lane, in a crowded space, it becomes more difficult. Whereas if you create your own lane, you're then at the forefront of your own lane. Female fronted metalcore 20 years ago was a unique lane. Whereas we're just a metalcore band with 5 dudes, it's crowded, right?
I've always had a philosophy. This comes from my podcast, but I like to see this everywhere. You shouldn't be focused so much on, I'm competing with this band, this band, this band, and this band. Because in my mind, if you're competing, that means you're following.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to be competing with you. That's fine. You can have everybody competing with you. Why? Because they're looking at you as the leader and they're following you, what you do, and they want to keep up with you. If you are so focused on always what competition is doing and how do I adjust and deal with what the competition is doing, I feel like you're never going to be yourself. And to what you were just sort of saying here is just be yourself. Even if what yourself is a completely different lane than what's working, what's happening, what's succeeding right now, do that, because you're not competing with the big boys who have nailed it. And I think from a business side of things, we also know at some point in time, the rinse and repeat stops on what's successful. Labels are like, all right, we've already got 6 versions of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We don't need 3 more of them. You know, I mean, and both of us being out of the 80s, listen, I think that's what killed all of the hard rock out of the 80s is, hey, let's be a 6th generation of Poison. Why?
Mm-hmm.
You got Poison and maybe you got one off of that. I don't need 6 other versions of that, or 6 other versions of Guns N' Roses, or 6 other versions of Bon Jovi or Def Leppard. That's what killed that scene and so many of those bands is you weren't unique.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And, go, oh, okay, cool. Like, I understand that, but how? I take like a page from Liquid Death. Did we need another water company? No, because water was available everywhere. Right. And there was plenty of things that about it. But here comes Liquid Death, if you're using this as like an analogy, and they entered a crowded space, water, but they did it differently. Right. They had their own voice. They had their own perspective of it. We're going to put our water in an aluminum can, and then we're going to put a skull on it. And we're going to have very unique marketing, and we're going to make this fun, and we're going to make this engaging, and we're going to make this a brand. Up until that point, water wasn't a brand. Right. And so, but my point is they entered a crowded space, but brought in a completely opposite perspective. So, you can ask yourselves, what is the opposite of what we're doing? We know what this is because we can see it in front of us, but what could be an opposite perspective? How can we flip this on its head? And I think one super relevant example is there's a girl that is doing really visible big business right now, and she's only been on YouTube for like 2 years. She has tens of millions of views, and she just does cover songs. So she recently released Bring Me the Horizon cover song on YouTube. It's just her, and she is dominating. She's like #1 on iTunes. Her video has like over 10 million views, right? She has 500,000 Instagram followers, and this is in a relatively short amount of time, but she's coming from it at a very different perspective. She looks a certain way, she's doing a certain thing, and she's like not trying to play in anybody else's sandbox, And so as much as you're like, oh, well, it's just a cover song. Oh, well, it's just a YouTube video. Yeah, but but your thing doesn't have 10 million views, though.
Right. Right.
She still made the video. She still put the songs up there.
All of this comes back to something I've always loved to say on the podcast for years. You ask this question and answer. What's your story? What's your vibe? What's your brand? What's your story? And you can't use your music as the answer to that. So now, describe your story without talking about how great your music is. Now you got to really think about it. But to your point, that's the first thing a new band needs to think about. Well, who are we? Whatever word you want to use. Who are we? What is our story? What is our brand? What is our vibe? What is our angle? I don't care what word you want to use. It all comes back to the same thing, which you just outlined. Who are you? And if you can't answer that, how do you think potential new fans are going to be able to answer that?
Yeah.
You really, I think to your sort of to the point you're getting at here is once you've, and I'm not, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, it's like, I'm not asking you to give me a 3-paragraph dissertation of it's just a bullet point, a couple bullet points. Who are we? What's our story? What are we about? What separates us from the pack? Just have that train of thought. Once you have that, then you can start building out of that. Then you can sit here and go, all right, well, it's such an old term to use, but what tribes could we fit in now?
Mm-hmm.
And by tribes, think of it as what Facebook groups could we become part of? Because there's a Facebook group or a Reddit channel or whatever that like-minded fans hang out in. All right, because I think you would agree that the worst thing you could do is come into a tribe, a channel, a group, act like you are part of this scene, but people look at you and go, oh my God, you're just an 80s hair metal ripoff. Get out of here. Get away. Get away. They'll attack you. So understand who you are. Then you can go start finding where the fans of that congregate, hang out, where they live. And then you can become part of that group. Now, I think this is the crucial part. Don't just show up on day one and start selling and promoting. You'll also get your ass kicked out. Just hang out and be a person, be a fan, the rest of them. And eventually the opportunity will present itself. Oh, you're cool. We've been chatting. What do you do? Oh, I've got my own band. Oh, really? What's the band name? Here's my band. Don't play buy, sell immediately.
Nope.
You've got to become part of that fan base. Once you become part of it, you'll see things grow and take off. But that's, in my opinion, how you start finding your fans. And I think it's incredibly important to say, you can't wait for fans to find you. That's just never going to happen unless you are struck by lightning and get an incredible deal, an incredible relationship. Something happens. People don't come and find you. You have to seek out and find your potential fans and put yourself in front of them and hope they like it.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mentioned last episode too that your music is your delivery mechanism of your message. And if you don't have a message, then you don't have music. You
Right.
know, like and so what I mean by that is it's almost in this day and age, because we have access to fans better than we ever did before, is understanding what problem your music solves for these people. Like, who do you want your audience to be? Like, what can your music do for your audience? Therefore, it is going to be valuable to them. Right. And it sounds so systematic, but it's just true. Like, you can't make music and hope that an audience is going to find it. You need to kind of target who it is that you think that will resonate with your message. And, it's like, look at a group of people. What types of things are they needing? Like, do they need to be uplifted? Right? Are they just looking for escapism? What type of escapism? What type of validation do they need? Like, there's certain people in certain demographics have certain needs that the soundtrack to their life
That the
will
music they want
identify.
they want the music to give them. Yep.
Right. Like, like Michael, in our formidable years, there is a soundtrack to our lives that whenever we hear a song from that era, from that point in our lives, it takes us back
Yep.
visually and mentally to a specific time. And then as you get older, that becomes a little bit less, right? Maybe it's a little bit more segmented and stuff, but there is a specific core group of music that we grew up on, that everybody grows up on, no matter what era it is, that really identifies. And so you need to think about how you're going to identify with the group of people, right? And you need to kind of target people that have the ability to take in music. Like, you wouldn't target you and I.
Right.
You wouldn't target us, right? Because we're not people that are going to take in like new music. Very seldomly are we going out and finding a new band and going in deep and buying their t-shirt and buying their ticket, right? That happens very seldomly for people like us nowadays.
Well, it happens less and less as fans get older and older and older.
Yep.
I mean, I can't remember if it was article, a study or something. It's like, by the time you're 35 years old, most people are set in what they like, and it's never going to expand.
Yep.
It's not to say there aren't people. I mean, I've always said, look outside your comfort zone. As a lifelong diehard Kiss fan, I'm like, stop listening to Kiss 24/7, people. There's more music out there. Even within the genre that they're in, expand.
Yep.
And that's easy to say. It's tough for fans to do that as they get older. And that's for everything. I mean, we've got our favorite TV shows. When we want comfort watching of TV, what do we go back to something we grew up on from 40 years ago and binge that, as opposed to watching a brand new series.
That's right.
But all of it is why you hit it on the head there, because that music delivers some message that when you hear it again, it does something for you. It takes you back. It gives you goosebumps. It does something for you that makes you remember, feel good, have an emotion of something. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week. It's like, that's sort of what your goal is for all your music. to trigger some emotion in the listener.
That's right.
If there's no emotional connection to your music, it's disposable music. They don't care. There's no reason to come back to it. Why do you come back to even a brand new artist with a brand new song over and over again? Because it did something for you. It made you feel something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for us to talk about this, but what is it that's felt? That's the $1,000,000 question. You know, if you and I could say this is exactly what you want to do to make people feel, you know, we'd be living in mansions. You know, everybody would be paying us money because that's the secret to music. How do you get people to connect to your song? If they connect to the song, they're going to connect to you as an artist. And that's the golden relationship right there.
Yeah. And look, there's nothing easy about that. But it's really something for independent artists to think about more so than anything else. Like, I really feel like the conversation amongst yourself as an artist, or if it's a group of guys that are in a band, it's really like about who are we targeting? How can we help those people? What message are we trying to convey? Is it an emotional thing? Is it a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Right? Like, what really is that? And what are they going to resonate with? What are they going to identify? Because it's like, if success is the goal here, and not just like, I'm just an artist and I just write songs and I don't care, that's fine. But like, I really find that people that say that like are kind of fooling themselves, because at the end of the day, they do really care.
Yeah.
And they do want to be successful, and they
Well,
do want people to like their music.
well, they want the listeners to care.
Yep.
If you're going to ask your listeners to care about your music, you should care about your music.
Yep. That's right. And just to beat this over the head one more time from last week, no one is going to build a fan base for you. And so this all kind of ties around itself, kind of circles back to understanding who you are as a brand, understanding who your audience is and what problem you're solving for them, gives you a very clear path of how you're going to build an audience. And an audience is your currency within this industry. Nothing else, not your music. It is your audience. This is a metric-based business. Now, if we're talking about the business side of it, and I'm not talking about the art of music, I'm talking about the business of business. And that is based around your metric of your audience. Who can these platforms that are businesses, how can they excel their business? How can they plug into your business with their time, energy, money, and effort? How are they going to plug what they do into your business? And how are we both going to profit from it? Right. And that's the most important thing. So thinking about how you can resonate with an audience with the intent of building an audience, that way you have the leverage that you need. You have the currency that you need to build a career.
Yes, exactly. I would wrap all of this up with a statement that whatever you figure out is your vibe, brand, message, whatever, it has to be authentic as well. Don't, and I think we've all seen this. Some band comes along and acts like that's their message and their vibe so they can get onto that track, that train. But in the world we live in now, everything is transparent. Everything from the past can be dug up and researched. And if you say, this is who I am, and somebody says, I remember 5 years ago, you said the complete opposite and attacked that message, it destroys your credibility instantly. So whatever you're going to come up with as the answer to all of this has to come from the heart, has to be real. You have to live it, breathe it. You have to believe it. It can't be, well, I think this is what we should be in order to get signed, to get shows booked. That will do it for us. It might work for a short period of time, but eventually you're going to get caught. And the fans catch you doing that. The fans are like, I'm gone. I'm jumping off of this one.
It's interesting multiple times, and I know you've seen this too, but multiple times in the course of my career, I have seen bands that have financing and they've tried to use that financing to skip the line of building a fan base. And they've tried to buy their way in. And it repeatedly never works because the fans are too smart. They smell the bullshit a mile away and they're like, this doesn't feel authentic. This feels bought in. This feels like you're trying to buy my fandom. My fandom is not for sale.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, we, again, being a huge Kiss fan, there's a band that's followed trends, tried to follow trends multiple times. And to some extent, I don't fault them because it's what a successful band does to keep riding the ups and downs of the waves of the industry that comes and goes. You have to sit here and go, all right, we're kind of at the bottom right now, but if I can figure out how to stay relevant for the next 12 months, there's a good chance I'll come back out on the top again. But bands can only do that if you've already had success, a fan base, something to survive off of. If you're an unknown band and you come down, good chance you're never coming back up again because you've been forgotten about right away. Right away. So yeah, again, I would end with all of this is so critically important to start and establish your new band, but be authentic about it. Don't overthink it from the sense of, well, what do we think the booking agent wants? What do we think a management company would be looking for? What do we think a record label wants if they wanted to sign us? You're overthinking it, and that's not going to work.
That's right.
Because, let's be honest, people like us see through that so many times. Yep. We'll meet with a potential client or see a band and we'll go back privately and talk and go, oh my God, there's just nothing real about that. That was just bought and paid for.
Yep.
And you move on to the next potential client.
Yep. It's a really tough business. Not even just the business side of it, but just the amount of work that goes into it. It's like, if you're lucky enough to be on stage for a half an hour, right? Like in the early days, man, those other 23 and a half hours are tough.
Yeah.
And not that half an hour isn't everything to everyone. And you see a lot of guys peel off pretty quick whenever like, man, I thought whenever I look at this as a career choice, from the outside, it looks a lot easier. It looks like there's a lot more money. It looks like there's a lot more prestige, right? Mm-hmm. And then whenever you get in there, you're like, I didn't sign up for any of this.
Where did all this work come from? I thought getting a record deal, I was done having to work. Now the work really starts.
That's right.
If you're totally into this to be a professional career forever, the work just gets harder, greater. Now, it's all because you're hoping for even greater rewards. Yeah, there's a ton of work. It's like you're doing all this work to get up to the starting line. Then you're in the races, and guess what? Now you've got you're not sprinting. You're going to be running a marathon for the rest of your life.
Yep. And I bring that up because I'm extending your point of authenticity because of the fact that if you get stuck in a situation that is inauthentic, you have to keep showing up that way. And that is even harder.
That's even harder to be fake forever.
Right? If it's authentic and you believe it, then the work becomes not work. It doesn't feel like
You just
work.
do you just do who you are.
Exactly.
Exactly. You do what your natural vibe, your natural brand, your natural story was. That's what this all comes back to. And listen, we could have this as a follow-up discussion next week. Don't think that that's your vibe, brand, story forever. It's going to change all the time, and
It
you
should
need to be.
change.
It
Yeah.
should change. It should grow and mature and change, and and then I'll just throw this out here as something we can ponder for later. What happens if you've set this as your vibe, and your fan base says this is the vibe we get from you?
Mm-hmm.
Now you got two different vibes.
Yep.
How do you accommodate that? What do you do? Happens all the time.
Yeah.
You start out as a heavy metal band, and just for shits and giggles, you release a ballad that goes huge, and now all of a sudden you're just known as a ballad soft band.
Yep.
What do you do? Stick to your original vibe? Do you change it?
Yeah.
It's tough. As you said, it should always change, and it will always change.
Yeah, because we're people, and
you grow. You're influenced by what's going on around you.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. So that was a great discussion. I do feel like this could be like a initial discussion that we can then expand upon next week and future weeks down the road of like, okay, now let's assume you've written you know who your vibe is. Now what do you do? What do you do? What's that next step?
Yeah.
I would love to throw out homework for anybody who's watching or listening. What do you think about this discussion? Have you thought about what your vibe is, what your brand is, whatever word again you want to use to describe? We'll use vibe. Have you put that effort in, and did it deliver returns that you had hoped? Did it help you move your career forward when you identified what your vibe was?
Yeah. Have you even considered?
Have you considered it? Now, I would bet right now most have not considered that. Most probably let the vibe get defined by the fans, and then they just adopt that vibe.
Right. Yeah. Or, in some cases, these situations when you go like, do you understand who you are? Do you understand who your audience is? Do you understand how those can connect? Right. And when you bring that up to a group of independent musicians, it's like this head exploder moment of like, I've never even considered that.
I know. As you're saying all that, I'm like, I can imagine right now, dude, I just want to freaking play guitar.
Yeah.
I don't want to worry about that stuff. Worrying about that stuff is why I wanted to become a musician. I didn't want to do that stuff.
Right. I didn't go to school to be a marketer. Yeah. I don't want to be a marketer.
Yeah. I didn't go to school to publish on social media and create videos and I just want to freaking write great songs, play my music and tour the world. All right. That's great. That's the reward.
Yeah.
That's the reward. All this other stuff has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So awesome. This was an awesome discussion. Again, a real quick shout out to everybody at Hypebot and Bands in Town for all your support. And that's it. We'll see everybody next week.
See ya.
Every month, thousands of musicians and industry professionals listen to the Music Biz Weekly podcast. If you have a product or service and would like to reach this audience, get in touch with Michael to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Voices for the Music Biz Weekly podcast provided by LarryDavisVoice.com.